Hello, everyone. Welcome. I got so into the music that I didn't even realize that the top of the hour had passed. So, warm welcome to Women Together. I'm Antoinette, and I'm happy to see everyone already saying hello in the chat. So, if you'd like to do that at the bottom of the screen, you can give a little hello and where you're coming in from today. I am here in Cortland Manor, New York, as usual, north of New York City and near our Eileen Fisher headquarters, but still at home. And yeah, happy to see everybody. So I see we have people coming in from Boynton Beach, Florida, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Long Island, Denver, Vancouver, Canada, New York City, Toronto, New Brunswick, Canada, Iowa, New Jersey, Germany, Huntington Beach, California, Maine, beautiful Sarasota, Texas, San Francisco. Wonderful. North of Chicago and very, very warm. Thanks, Nalani. Yeah, it's wonderful to have everyone just kind of landing here together and joining in from all over and really just connecting with one another. And really, what we've been doing, as many of you already know, and you've been part of these conversations for week after week. We've been just coming together as a community of women and just sitting with what's coming up for us. So if you're new, to this group, welcome. We've been gathering every week pretty much since the start of the pandemic. And before that, we had been gathering to just be together in practice, so earlier on, Eileen had been sharing some of her personal leadership practices and, her own kind of personal practices for inner freedom and personal growth with all of us and bringing in some of her favorite teachers. And today we have a very special guest who I'll introduce in just a moment, but we will be sharing Susan Balaban's work on shifting perspective. And really just, I met Susan a few years ago at Eileen Fisher. And so I'm really pleased to have us coming back together in this way and looking forward to hearing you share, Susan. I'm glad to have you with us. So, but before we jump into what you're sharing with us, I thought we'd just do one of our tiny practices. Just looking for a little singing bowl. And the idea is that we have this little hour together. So we have an idea of just what it means to land with each other and get centered and present and kind of be in our bodies and be with the earth body and just connecting with each other in a way that that allows us to just be able to move forward with our day and our week in a more positive, perhaps, or grounded at least way. So that's what we're doing here, and we have tiny practices to get us to that place. So the tiny practices can be a moment of stillness, which we've used inside Eileen Fisher at our meetings and just getting ourselves centered and grounded before a meeting. Or at any point throughout the day, perhaps you just take a moment to journal or a moment to just connect in with yourself before you connect with others and be out in the world. So with that, I just invite us to a little moment of stillness. If you can get both feet flat on the ground, that's comfortable for you. And I'll talk us into it a little bit, but I'll ring a bell or ring the singing bowl to just hear the sound of the resonance of that in our body as much as we can through Zoom, and just hold that moment of stillness, and then I'll ring the sound of the bowl again. So if you can, if you'd like to close your eyes or lower your gaze, whatever is in your practice, just tune into the breath. Perhaps as you tune in, maybe not trying to change it, but just noticing what comes up when you just listen to it moving in and out of the body. Feeling the temperature of the breath on the nostrils. Perhaps sending it inside the body into any place that there may be tension and letting it relax. So I welcome you back to Meet Your Screen and the people in it and all the hearts that are sitting here together. Um, and I'd like to turn it over to Susan and maybe just tell you a few little details about her. Mainly because, Susan has been coming into Eileen Fisher and kind of guiding the Eileen Fisher employees in a lot of different ways, and just supporting us in our work and endeavors and really, giving us a kind of insight into what's possible and where we might go. And her background is fascinating, and she's got a background in a Feng Shui professional training program, and she's studied in astrology, shamanism, medical clairvoyance, tarot, and really done some extensive study in these areas all around the world. And she brings that background to her support of many others. She has her own company in advertising and marketing, as well as these different areas that I just mentioned. And my personal experience with Susan is also, we both have a hobby of jewelry making, but Susan has been sharing it with the Eileen Fisher employees more deeply too. So but personally, at the beginning of the Chinese New Year, I would come in and listen to Susan sharing about what was possible for us in the upcoming year, and just getting that perspective of what's happening, how that can connect to nature and to our own lives and to our own births, and what that can mean for us. That for me was really a place where I just felt your insight, Susan, has been so I'm so grateful for that in all the years that I've been with Eileen and doing this work. And I know that so many of our team members have been grateful for that as well. So I've been really just so glad that you're here with us. I can't believe it took us this long to get you here, but it's so great to have you. And what we'll do is just have you share whatever you'd like, really, for the next 20 minutes or so. I know we have a little plan, but then we'll turn to each other in breakouts afterwards and just connect around what comes up for us. And there's magic in hearing from you, Susan, and there's really magic in what happens in those breakouts, where we can really just witness each other and deeply listen to what's coming up, and then we'll come back and close. So I turn it over to you, Susan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I love every minute that I've spent at Eileen Fisher. It's been one of the great joys of my life. And I miss being there so much in the pandemic. It is just an incredible company, incredible people. And I learned as much as I hope from them as I hope they learned from me. And thanks so much for having me and including me in this wonderful, wonderful weekly meeting that I didn't even know existed. So I'm excited for myself in the future to know that this is here. So I thought a lot about, there's so many things that I could have talked about, that I could talk about today. But the first thing that came up for me was because I do a lot of Feng Shui, and I'm very interested in our spaces and how our spaces impact us. And I thought it was an interesting idea because we've all spent so much time in our homes this last year. And, we're actually, not even used to walking into our homes, to see how we feel, because we're not even leaving our homes. So anyway, I thought it would be interesting to revisit that feeling of walking into our home and what it means and what it brings up for us. And actually, this is a very important part of Feng Shui, which I've studied, by the way, and practiced for over 20 years. And an important part of that, the whole study of it, is being able to be aware of our perspectives when we walk into our spaces, and to be able to go in and see our rooms and our furniture and our choices with awareness and with, beginner's mind or fresh eyes, which we so often lack when we live in a space for a long time, or work in a space for a long time, or even are in a relationship for a long time. We sort of, we have this path that we follow. We have this way that we see things, or even stop seeing things, because we just go through the motions. what I do when I work with my clients is I help them to see their space again for the first time. And through a lens of, harmony and balance and interconnectedness, and most of all, awareness. And so I guess what I would say is that, here's a great story. There was a woman that came to hear a talk I gave many, 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 many years ago. And she said to me, she was really interested in feng shui. And she was so excited to have me come to her house. She said, you have to come, you have to come, you have to come. And I said, oh, you're so excited. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you're thinking about? And she said, well, I feel so numb in my house and I can't figure out why I feel so numb. And it was such an interesting way to describe her relationship to her house. And so I did go to see her and we spoke, and she shared with me that she was married and was having a child, was pregnant, and at that time, and her husband ended up leaving her, and it was a very painful thing, but he bought her this house before he left. He said, I'll buy you a house, I'll set you up. So this was this house she bought in grief, and she bought in extreme pain. And she just kept saying, I feel numb. And there's something in feng shui called predecessor's qi that we always look at. And that is, who lived there before you? What is it about the energy that may have attracted you to rent that apartment or buy that home? And so I said to her, what did the people who lived there before you do? And she said, well, they're both anesthesiologists. And it was such a revelation for me. I mean, I was really young in my practice, and it was such a, it's like, wow, she went there to feel safe. This was a safe space for her. And she loved these people and she stayed in touch with them. And the minute that she heard it, when she said they're anesthesiologists, it was the first time it had occurred to her, this connection. And so she ended up, moving, and she moved to California, and she started her life over with her two daughters. And it was, the beginning of the next part of her life, because she was able to let it go, because she realized it had served its purpose and now it was no longer supporting her. So what feng shui does is it strives to open our lines of communication between our spiritual eyes and our physical spaces. And it also helps bring us together with nature. It sort of helps bring together the natural world and our inner world. And, without getting into too much about it, you all may know or may not know very much about feng shui, but it started many, many, many thousands of years ago in China, and it was originally used to site ancestors' graves. And so feng shui means wind and water. And it was originally, you would try to site your ancestors' graves in a really a balanced, harmonious space, and which meant there would be wind and flow, but not too much wind. And there would ideally be water or some water feature, but not too much water, not water moving too fast. And so, it was really trying to create, harmony between nature and your family in order to find good luck and, and to create a fortunate life, and so that has now, of course, changed, and now it's much more modern, and we're using feng shui now. We've turned it more toward our homes and our work lives, our offices, our rooms, our furniture. But the intention is still the same, is to find balance and to find awareness. And in order to, the idea is, if we live more in harmony with each other and with nature, we create a more harmonious home for ourselves, and vice versa. Think Stonehenge, think the pyramids. We've been doing this forever, trying to create harmony with nature and balance with nature. So in today's feng shui, we believe that our home tells our story. And in every corner of your house, in every feature of your house, there's a narrative. Our homes are filled with hundreds of our stories and hundreds of our narratives based on our choices. So for instance, we look at hallways, and we look at the configuration of rooms and the shapes of rooms and the shape of the house and the property and the position of the stairs, of the furniture, of the roof lines, the windows, the basement. I mean, the basement is full of, our past, and we look at our attics, and we look at, our orientation of our beds and our doors, and, our neighbors, and who lived there before us, predecessor qi, and who's living around us, and who's in our neighborhoods. And we do this all so we can try to ascertain more awareness about our lives and our own inner lives and our choices, and also to become more aware of our intentions and what we're creating by our choices. It's not about perfection. You know, that's a great misnomer about feng shui. It's not all about perfection. It's about connection. It's about connecting with ourselves, our deeper selves. It's about connecting with our past, connecting with our future, connecting with others, with the world around us. And so there are all these things we look at in a house, but perhaps the most important thing we look at are our front doors, our thresholds, our entrances. That's what sort of, when everyone breaks off into groups, what I thought would be a wonderful exercise, if you choose to do it, would be a visualization of entering your home and trying to go in with fresh eyes, new eyes, as if it's the first time you've seen the entrance to your house. And so just sort of a little bit of background about what the front door means. It is really considered the most important part of the house, because nothing can be accomplished or altered or changed inside your home energetically if the flow to the outside is cut off or blocked. So we call the front door, you know, the mouth of chi, the mouth of energy. And it, you know, we can determine by that entrance how much energy is getting into our house, whether our house is being lifted by energy or drained by energy, or even whether there's too much and we can't get anything done because there's too much energy, which is, remember, this is about balance always. So it's not really more is better. It's a really healthy flow. And the front door also tells us about how we welcome opportunity into our lives and how we deal with new things, with changes. And also conversely, how we set up boundaries, and how well we're able to set boundaries for ourselves. That's also found at the side of our front door. And whether or not we can let go of what doesn't support us, whether we can, move forward and let go of the things that no longer support or sustain us. It also tells us, it gives us clues about how we feel in the outside world versus how we feel in our inner world. And whether we communicate well or whether we have a difficult time talking to others about things that are important, and whether we end up in disagreements or whether we can freely express ourselves and listen. It also shows us if we can make room for new experiences or whether we end up feeling blocked. And it also tells us about, very importantly, this is actually, and now in the time of COVID and spending so much time in our homes, this is an even more important question, is how well we're able to transition between our work lives and our home lives. And can we let things go, or do we take everything with us? And if we're doing it in a healthy way. And of course, lastly, the front door is how we consciously or unconsciously present ourselves in the world. That's the first thing someone will see about us, is our front door or our entry hall or the steps going up to our front door. So we're going to do this visualization exercise in which you'll imagine yourself approaching the house with beginner's eyes. And important things to pay attention to are how you feel as you're getting closer to your home. Are you anxious? Are you feeling tired? Are you excited? What's going through your mind? Are you, hunched over? How is your breath? Are you open up? You're walking upright? What's your posture like? What's the first thing you see? How do you feel when you're going home? How do you feel when you see your house and you're walking in? And things to take notice of. Is the path to your door well marked and well lit, or is it dark and hard to find? Is the path nicely paved, or are there cracks and things that you could trip on? Are there things blocking you in your way as you're walking along your path? If you live in an apartment, are the stairs leading up to it steep? Are you tired by the time you get to the top of them? Is there a rail? Is there a rail to hold on to? Is your hallway well lit? Is your elevator clean and well lit? Is the hall cluttered? Are your neighbors loud? Is that the first thing you hear when you go home? Is your neighbors yelling? If you live in a home, are the plants outside healthy? and alive and well? And what are the trees like around your space? Because trees drink in energy more than any other part of nature around our house. And when a tree is not well, it's indicative of potential inner problems that you want to work on. The tree can oftentimes give you clues about your entrance. What else would I say? Oh, are the numbers to your house fully visible, or are they hidden? Do you even have numbers on your house so people can find you? What does the front door look like? Is it painted? Is it clean? Do you like the color? Does it feel in proportion to your space? Do you have something welcoming on your door? Do you feel safe when you approach your house? Do you feel, or do you look over your shoulder? Are you walking slowly? Are you walking quickly? Do you use your front door, or do you have a secondary door that you enter, or do you go in through your garage? I once did a talk, and we were doing this visualization, and this woman in the talk, who was so funny, she gasped in the middle of the visualization, and at the end, she was the first to talk, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh!" She said, "Every time I drive home, I go into my garage, which is very tight, and I open my door and I hit those trash cans every time." And, she said, it drives me crazy. And I'm, sort of shimmying through between my door and the trash cans, trying to get out and trying not to get up against the trash cans. And my purse is like, I'm fumbling with my purse. And she said, "I'm always really grouchy. I'm always like, what's trash cans?" And she said, "Why don't I just move the trash cans?" She's like, "They've been there for 7 years." And so, that's sort of what it means to have fresh eyes, that you could be doing something or having this experience that could be really driving you crazy, but you almost don't even notice it. It's just the way it is. So we keep doing it. So she moved her trash cans. And hopefully that's led to a lot of good homecomings for her. So, are you always losing your keys? That can be very telling. How do you feel when you enter and walk into your entry foyer? Because your entry foyer is very important too. Is that well lit? Is it clean or messy? Do you have a place to hang your coat? And one of my challenges is I go in and I take off my coat and I go to my hall closet, and it's always stuffed with coats. And I can never find a hanger. I can never find a place for the coat. My coat, I'm jamming it in there. And I'm always thinking, why don't I just clean out my coat closet and throw all these coats I don't wear away or give them away? Because it's nice to have that feeling of flow where you don't feel stuck, that you don't have a place to put things when you come into your entry hall. And what else would I say? Do you have a place to put your shoes? Do you have a place to put your purse? Do you have a place to put your keys? Or is your space so organized and so perfect that you immediately get frustrated if anything is out of place? Because that's the opposite of, that's something completely different. And do you feel, you're immediately looking for the things that are imperfect, and you're immediately looking for the problems? Is there anything preventing you from opening the door fully? Do you have a table behind the door that if you open the door, you hit the table? Or, do you have another door that's behind it? Sometimes in apartments, this is the case, where there's a front door opens and then your closet door opens and they can hit each other. Is your door on an angle? What else might I say? In my own house, so there's something that I'm not going to really get into, but I'll mention it because it's something you might be interested in looking up after we're finished today. And it's called the Bagua, which is BAGUA. And it is a very simple map that we put over the floor plans of our houses or apartments to help us see which part of our house. So in feng shui, we believe every part of our house represents something. So there's a part of your house that represents your children, and a part that represents your marriage, and a part that represents your work, and a part that represents your education. And so we superimpose this map over our floor plans or our houses in order to see which part of our house represents which part of the Bagua. And we can also do something which is a little more advanced, but it's actually very interesting. And I'm very interested in medical, as and trained as a medical clairvoyant. So it's very interesting to me, this part of it, that you can also put your body over the floor plan of your house, and every part of your floor plan represents a part of your body. And for me, this was especially interesting because I was having a lot of, a lot of right shoulder problems. And I had a frozen shoulder in my right shoulder for several months. And then I had another injury on my right shoulder. And when my feng shui teacher came into my house, because it's always very hard to see your own things, when he came into my house, he said to me, you have this slant. This is not you have this slant right where your right shoulder is in your house. And I made some changes. I put some mirrors there. I put brighter light. I opened it up so that you didn't see the slant. It looked much more open. And whether it was suggestion or whether it was really as a result of the changes I made, I've not had a problem with my shoulder since. So it's kind of interesting, all the different layers of teachings in feng shui. But the bagua is interesting. And if you're at all interested, you should look it up. What else do I want to add? And another thing, a thing you can notice too is, what other doorways do you see when you walk into your house? Is there a bathroom there? Do you see the toilet when you walk in? Or do you have to keep the door closed so you don't see the toilet? Is that something that's in your line of vision when you walk in? Because in feng shui, toilets bring down energy. And of course, everybody has to have a toilet in their house. So it has to be somewhere, but it's not so great if it's the first thing you see, because it brings you down when you first walk in. And especially important is, what is the first thing you see when you walk into your house? Because that tells you a lot about, it can tell you a lot about yourself and, unconsciously. And I did this other consultation for a Shakespearean actor who lived on the Upper West Side. And we did the whole consultation. He was in his white bathrobe. He was very dramatic. And, he had this wonderful penthouse apartment. And I went up in the elevator. And when I got out of the elevator, it just opened up into his apartment. He didn't even have a shared foyer. And I walked in, and the first thing I saw were 8 drawings on his wall, and all of the drawings were pictures or were drawings of women holding back men. So in one instance, a woman had her foot on a man's neck so he couldn't get up, and another, some women were holding a man's hands behind his back so he couldn't move forward. So there were all these, and so of course the first thing I said to him is, "How is your relationship with your mother?" So anyway, it's also interesting to go in with fresh eyes and see, well, what did I choose to put in the place? That's the first thing I see when I walk into my home. So, if you're always rummaging for your keys, it can mean, a reluctance to go home, trepidation about going home. If your numbers are missing or can't be seen, that can suggest I'm keeping people or opportunities at arm's length. If you have, and that's the same thing if you have poor lighting at night, or if you have poor lighting, it can be a result of, unconsciously about not wanting to acknowledge something or see something. If your front door hits another door when you open it, those are called fighting doors. And that can mean that there can be arguments inside the house, or disagreements, or not seeing eye to eye. If you don't have a place to put your things when you come in, it suggests you're not making room for new growth, for new opportunities, or something's holding you back from doing that. And if you're upset that everything's out of place when you walk home, that also may be a sign that something's preventing you from being able to enjoy your life and seeing things in a more positive way. So as I was saying before, one of the great misunderstandings about feng shui is that it's about creating a perfect house. And it isn't. That's actually, nothing could be farther from the truth. It's not about perfection. It's really in opposition to feng shui, actually, perfection is, because if we don't give ourselves room to know ourselves more deeply, and to know and to experiment with our connection to others and our connection to the world and to nature, if we're not permitting ourselves to make mistakes and to be messy at times, we can't really grow. So it's not about, sometimes people will hire me and they'll just want their houses to be perfect so that they don't have any problems. And I, of course, say that's not at all what this is about. This is not about judgment. It's about a mirror. It's really an opportunity to see ourselves on a deeper level, and to acknowledge ourselves, and to acknowledge pain we might be feeling, or or something, a goal or something we dream of that we might, might be there, but we can't see it because we're not listening to the connection between ourselves and our home and what we've created. Um, so it's really about, it's about a mirror. It's about being able to see and meet yourself in a space where you can appreciate yourself more deeply, and and sort of the same reason that we meditate, to hear ourselves on a deeper level, to acknowledge, to accept ourselves. Um, and we use it as a tool for healing and balancing our inner life and our outer life. I mean, I've always felt, in all of the different healing arts that I've studied, I've always felt that the real goal of all of it is to bring our inner life and our outer life in harmony, is to be the same person in our private lives that we are in our public lives, to have that connectedness and to accept ourselves that fully, and to know ourselves that fully and that wholly, that there's no discrepancy between those two, between our inner self and our outer self. Um, so likewise, when you, and I guess we'll get started, but likewise, when you start this visualization, approach it through awareness and gratitude and appreciation, and not judgment. This is not a judgment exercise. This is not an exercise where you go in and you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that. I mean, it's only teaching. It's only, it's only you hearing yourself echoed back to you. That's a lovely thing, to have those moments when we can hear like deeper parts of ourselves, however we do that. And so get settled in your space, take some deep breaths, and spend a minute or two walking into your home with new eyes for the first time. Start from where you see your home from afar. Don't start right at the front door, but if you live in a house and you're driving up, start from the part where you're in your car and you're driving up and you're seeing the house as a whole. If you live in an apartment, start from where you see your apartment building on the road or the street and walking in through it. And just be open and aware to whatever comes up without any judgment, and see how you feel and see what appears to you and what comes up to you. Is everyone ready?
You got a lot of thumbs ups.
Okay. So now everyone just breaks off or talk. We'll talk to each other and do it through chatting.
Well, it's up to you. Do you want to lead us through the visualization, or would you like people to do it on their own in the breakouts?
I think it would probably be good for people to do it on their own, just because everyone's coming in a different way. So if you're in an apartment building, it's a little bit different than if you're coming in through a house. I would suggest that would be probably the best way to do it. And take your time, go at your own pace.
So, what we'll do is turn to each other in small groups, and maybe we can give each other, let's see, we can give 15 minutes. So, if we did 3-person groups, we can do 5 minutes per person. And so if you take about 4 minutes to kind of do the walkthrough and share with the other two people will kind of witness your sharing of your walkthrough and kind of seeing with fresh eyes from the experience that Susan just shared. And then see what perspective you get from the two people who you just shared with, and then go to the next person. And we can do that in groups of 3, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back here. So if you're in Zoom, we'll do it that way. If you have been joining us on YouTube, you can take this time to actually maybe quiet the mind and do that visualization for yourself, and just think through or maybe write down what you see. And we'll see you back here. If you're on YouTube, we'll see you back here next week with Brownie. So if you're in Zoom, we'll turn to each other now and have 15 minutes, and we'll see you back here soon.